Alrighty, good morning, 7th graders. So today we are doing another reteaching, but first let's go over the bell work that was from today. Okay, kind of a spiral review of things you can expect to see and need to know for the test this week, and you need to know for 8th grade next year. Because you're going to take what we're learned this year and you're going to go a few steps even farther. Okay. So Monday, Javier gives private soccer lessons each night. The equation is y equals 20x. The amount of money y he earns after mowing x amount of lawns. Well, I think they meant to say that for each lesson. All right, write a sentence to describe the constant of proportionality. Okay, so drawing. So the concept of proportionality, that is basically them asking to explain what does this equation represent and what is 20 important about. So we could say that Javier earns $20 per lesson. I'm going to go with what they started with. Right? That's all they're basically wanting to know. What is this 20 basically representing as our constant of proportionality? All right, we need to determine if the relationship showing in the table has a constant rate of change. If so, write an equation that represents. So if I take 82, divide it by 2, that becomes 41. Okay, 64 divided by 4, that becomes 41. Divided by 6, 41. Divide by 8, I get 41. So notice how they all came down to being this. So now I also have to write an equation. Well, what number did they all reduce to? That's our k in our equation. So y equals 41x. It's always y equals and then your number times x. That is where we're starting this year. All right. Next one. Are we proportional? Well, is it going through our origin? We know it's a straight line, but it did not cross the origin, so it did not meet both of our criteria. So no, it is not proportional. Okay, but does it consistently increase going up 1 and over 2, up 1, over 2, up 1, over 2? Yes, it consistently does that. Even if I took and just went with this, the 2 dots there, that is going up 2 and over 4. So up 2 over 4, that's the same as our half of going up 1 and over 2. It's the same thing. So the constant proportionality is a half. Okay. Now the equation, because it didn't go through the origin, is not going to be the same as our other. So we're not going to worry about that completely, but we would start it like this. And then we would have to add where we cross the y-axis at 2. That's where 8th grade is going to really come into play. So you guys are going to have to know your y-intercepts. All right, graph each point on the coordinate plane, then answer the questions. So we have at 1, we go up to 6. Then at 2, we're at 8. Then we're at 3, we're at 10. We're at, 4, we're at 12. I'm assuming 5 will be about right there. Okay, so is this proportional if I went straight across? Well, we're going to go through the 4. So no, it is not proportional. But what is our constant of proportionality? How is it consistently going up and over, up and over, up and over? It consistently goes up 2 and runs 1. If I made that into a fraction, we get 2. And then, of course, the equation would start as our y equals 2x. But where does it cross out the y-axis? Being our plus 4. Okay, so that's your bell work for this morning. Now let's look at today's notes. Kind of a little bit of a spiral review. Okay, you're going to plot the points just like we did before. Okay, so remember this is always my x. Ooh, this is always my x. This is always the y. All right, so when x is 1, y is 1. Well, that one's a little hard to plot. I'm going to assume it's about right there. When x is 2, y is 8. I'm going to have to do some estimating here. And y is 3, or when x is 3, y is 27. So is this a straight line? No. See, it has a little bit of a curve. That's how some of your graphs are going to be, especially when you get into algebra in high school. You're not going to have linear equations. So is there a constant rate of change? If it's not a straight line, there is not. So then we're not going to worry about these. All right. So number 2 is pretty similar. So you're going to have to do that one on your own. Number 4. Okay, so we have 2 plants. Okay, we have that the plants is recorded after 1, 2, 3 weeks. Which plant growth represents a proportional relationship between time and height? Well, which one's a straight line? We would say B, because it's a straight line. That, and having a straight line means it has a constant rate of change. That's why we say that. And crosses the origin. Sorry, I'm using Cami today. It's a little, I should have typed. We'll do that with the next one. Okay, so which plant grows at a constant rate? So again, we would say plant B, because it has a straight line and slope, and the slope is our constant rate of change, and it goes for slope of 1 inch per week. Can you even give what is the constant rate? Well, the constant rate is 1 inch per week. All right, so 1, 2 goes up 1, over 1, up 1, over 1, up 1, over 1, and my units are in ones. Remember, it's always important also to look at the units. All right, so 5 is pretty similar. And same with 2 or 3 and 6. Okay. Now let's talk about what do the points represent though on number 6. All right. How far is each car after 2 hours? So we have to look at our 2 hours. So this is my hours. So we have to look at this point, and then we're looking at that point. Okay. So car A, being the red line, at 2 hours is at 20. Oops, I was on the line. No wonder it's making some crazy. So we're at 128. Don't worry about that. Okay, car B is at 2 and 90. Oh, wait, not 28. I should have looked at my order pairs. See these order pairs? That's what we're looking at. All right, and 2 and 90. What do the 0.00 and 1.5 90 represent in car A? This was a question on our practice test, and a lot of students missed it. So that's why we're going over it again. All right, so 0, 0 a little bit bigger so I know you guys can see it. Okay. 0, 0 is before moving. Right? Kind of like our starting point. And then the 1.5, 90. Well, X is my hours and Y is my miles. So that means the car drove 90 miles in 1.5 hours. That's where a lot of students miss that type of question about the horses. So write an equation for the relationship between time and the distance car B. So car B is our blue line. And we want to know, how is it going up and how is it going over each time? Well, I'm going to just use my order pair of the 2 and 120. I take my 120 and divide it by 2. I get 60. If I took all the other, wait, nope, that's the wrong word. Sorry, guys. My eyes aren't working this morning. So look and see. Okay. We're going to take our 2 and 90. So take 90, divide it by 2 to get 45. So we have y equals 45x. Okay. Okay, find slope of the line. Then what does this graph show a proportional relationship? Explain. And then is there a constant rate of change? If so, what is it? So we already have the order pairs given for us to find our slope. So we went 1, 2, 3, 4. So we went up 4 and over 2. Remember, it is always rise over run. So went up 4 and went over 2. That becomes a 2. That's your slope, 2. Is this a proportional relationship? Well, it's a straight line, but does it go through my origin still? So no, doesn't cross the origin. Okay, you're gonna have to do 8, but I'm gonna give you a hint. Remember, if you're going down, down always equals a negative slope. All right, we have to graph the point at -1 and 1, and then have a slope of -4, 3. So here is where x is -1, but y is +1. You always do your x first, then your y when you're plotting a order pair. But then when we're doing our slope, we always do our rise over run. So it tells me go down 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I run 3. 1, 2, 3. We always run going the opposite way. All right, so if I ran out 3 and 1, 2, 3, that's about where my other one should be. There's my line. All right, so we graphed, and then we're gonna do the same for 10. Then we have some word problems, because we always gotta have word problems. Bailey bought 4 pounds of tomatoes for $11.96. Write an equation relating to the cost of number of pounds of tomatoes. So we're telling you to take your pounds and divide it by, or take your cost and divide it by your pounds. So I have to take my 11.96 and divide by 4. Okay. So our 11.96 divided by 4 is 2.99. That basically is our k in the equation y equals kx. All I'm going to do now, though, is replace my k with my 2.99. And there's my equation. Use the same equation to represent how Haley will pay for 6 pounds of tomatoes. Okay, so that means you have to take y equals 2.99 times 6 to get your answer. Okay, so multiply that, get your answer. But what if now x was 10? So that's what you're going to do in this one. You're going to take your 299 times 10. All right, so finish the remaining problems and you are all done.